Hello everyone, my name is Phawx. In this particular video we're going to take a look at how to play older PC games on modern Windows 10. Now this particular video we're going to be taking a look at the GPD WinMax because this adds an extra layer of complexity. However, this will still work on any type of Windows 10 PC. This is more about highlighting how it's still up to you, the user, and the responsibility on you to figure out what is going on and how you can work through it. So I'm going to go through a lot of different examples and kind of talk about each one of them so that it can highlight on where you need to look and how to try to fix things. So Wolfenstein 3D is one game that one of my Discord members was having problems using. Largely whenever we talk about fixes, we always reference DGVoodoo2. Now DGVoodoo2 is actually still in active development. The latest version that is available right now is version 2.64. I am recording this on July 12th, 2020. This was updated on June 17th, 2020. There's a work in progress version of June 30th. So this is still very recent. There are newer versions of this where it actually supports older DirectDraw games much better. There is still the DirectDraw wrapper itself, which I will be showing here as well. This particular wrapper will be wrapping in OpenGL versus DGVoodoo2, which will be wrapping in DirectX 11. Additionally, there are some other there are additional steps sometimes, and you can kind of see that in the general results page, which he has been documenting here. So if we kind of step through here, you can see needs the patch executable, and if you go to that, it'll bring you to another tab which has a bunch of patches. So if there's a PC game that you're looking, like Resident Evil 2, he's showing what you need to do, the steps you need to do, not just patches, but also in the DGVoodoo2 control panel, which you can find right here. And largely you shouldn't have to touch this at all. You should just be able to just, use it and go away. But sometimes certain games are going to need it. And we kind of have to frame this in the sense that while I am showing you a bunch of different examples and we're going to kind of step through them, I'm going to kind of highlight how you need to step through all those things. And also, there are other ways to play games. And one of the things that I would recommend, so if we look at Blood Rain 2, now a lot of these games that I'm going through are games that were recommended to me on the GP2Win subreddit, saying they're not playable on the Win 2, and likewise because the WinMax has a portrait display, how we can go about fixing that. Now, Blood Rain 2 only came out on the original Xbox, the PlayStation 2, and Windows PC. There isn't a good Xbox emulator. PlayStation 2 emulation, it has been around for a long time, but lots of times it's not super great and can be finicky to set up, and more than likely the Windows version is going to be the best version. So we're going to go basically step through that and how to get that running. For the most part, DGVoodoo2 is a one-stop shop. However, let's just quickly take a look at Wolfenstein 3D. So if we go to Wolfenstein 3D, right now I own all these games on Steam. However, if you have the good old games version, it's going to be the same thing because they've already pre-packaged these in a DosBox wrapper itself, which is using SDL to wrap stuff. So if we go to Browse Local Files, now this is the base folder. You are not going to want to put the DGVoodoo files in here. First, if we do that, you want to always put the DLL files that are going to be injecting wherever the executable lives. So in this particular instance, DOSBox is what is the executable that is running the game as the emulator, and then there are SDL configuration files on top of that. Technically, for most people, they won't actually need to do anything. This has already been adapted to work with Windows 10. For people that have wonky displays or something, DirectDraw is the standard version that is being outputted right here, and that can cause problems. So very quickly, if I were just to show you, if I put, we're going to go into the MS folder, x86, because most games are 32-bit. We only need DirectDraw here. We don't have to copy all of them. You can copy all of them. We only need DirectDraw here because that's what is actually being wrapped and outputted, and we are going to override that. So we're going to intercept all DirectDraw calls and redirect them to DirectX 11. However, because SDL can't interact with this, it's going to fail. So this just fails outright. So let's go ahead and back out into the base directory of Wolfenstein. We're going to undo that, right? So what happens if it's just running on this? Now remember, the native resolution, the native display on the WinMax is portrait style. So if I just go ahead and press play on this, what happens is you can see that this is halved, and because the native resolution and the resolution is rotated, it's actually interrupting, and we get this half screen problem. But if we take a look right up here, you can see that it says DirectDraw right in this overlay. So that's pretty much the first step on things that you kind of always want to pay attention to is what is the game running? You have to understand how the graphics are being interacted with. So now that we know that that's DirectDraw, right? And where was it? The DGVoodoo2 wasn't working. We're going to use the OpenGL wrapper. So this is DD-Hack with a few configuration parameters in here that are just kind of smoothing and kind of calling for the Warcraft 3 scan double blind fix, and half is going to be an interpolation to kind of make it look nicer. But if I go ahead and just drop this in here, the DirectDraw hack will work, and SDL will output to it, and we will successfully wrap this in OpenGL. However, you can see that the screen is uber tiny and is not really useful to us. So how do we fix this? Now, we have already looked into the base directory. The thing here is that you don't need to actually use a wrapper in this particular instance. It's not necessary. So if we go back here and I just undo what I did, what you need to do is you start looking for the configuration file. So DosBox, we see this, but DosBox is kind of just the underlying emulator. We got to take a look at the Wolfenstein 3D configuration. Now right here, if we take a look, you can see that it is DirectDraw. So now the only thing that we have to do is change this to OpenGL, save it, close it, and we're going to go back here and we're going to push play. And again, I didn't put any wrappers or any DLL injectors, and we can just see that it's just running as it should, because DirectDraw largely is going to be the thing that is causing us problems. So just by changing that one file in there fixed our problem. So it's more about understanding the pathway, conceptualizing the virtual way that this is all being drawn on the screen, right? So that's Wolfenstein 3D. Now what about Oddworld, right? Oddworld Abe's Odyssey, if there's nothing there, hopefully I've kind of reverted everything. No, I didn't. So this is right now using DGVoodoo2. We can kind of go ahead in this. This particular intro is running a little slow. Well, it's running too fast that how it looks is actually looking kind of weird. But once we get to the demo, it kind of locks at 30 FPS right here, and then everything runs fine. This is using DGVoodoo2. It wasn't that long ago that DGVoodoo2 did not support Abe's Odyssey at all. We had to use actually the DirectDraw hack, but now DGVoodoo2 actually supports Abe's Odyssey, which is great. So DGVoodoo2 has been getting updated. So I would say if you were going to look at a game on how to play an older PC game, start with DGVoodoo2. Just kind of get the files. They're going to be presented in this manner. So when you download them, you're going to see them. You're going to see this. Now here's the control panel. There are, again, if you take a look at see general test results on the page, you will kind of go through, stepping through this compatibility chart that the developer is going through, and any game patches that, or configuration things that he recommends to have it run well. So definitely take a look there, and also look at it to glean for information for other games. Additionally, take a look at the DirectDraw hack. I will have a link in the description field that will go to DGVoodoo2 as well as the DirectDraw hack, because sometimes DGVoodoo2 just simply doesn't work. As you saw by actually just putting it into Wolfenstein 3D, it outright failed. Whereas the DirectDraw worked, but the resolution was tiny. So it's more about just working our way backwards and not trying to add stuff if it's not absolutely needed, and just kind of adding it if it's absolutely broken. So we'll go ahead, let me go ahead and close this. Abe's Odyssey you saw was running. Let us go to another game here. So Blood Rain 2, hopefully I still don't have... Okay, so this is just the... Okay, great. So this fails, right? Great. We're going to go into right click on it, go to properties. You're going to want to go to local files, browse local files. Okay, so in the base directory, wherever the executable lives, that's where you're going to want to put those DGVoodoo2 files. So we're going to go in here, you're going to go to MS. Typically, you're only going to be looking at x86, 32-bit, and you're going to go ahead and dump it in here. And for the most part, this is just going to work. And we'll just say OK here. Now, obviously, you could mess around with different settings in that panel that you showed, just so you can have different resolutions. Now, right now on this WinMax, you can't see it here. Right now, I am in mouse mode. So this is actually the mouse that I have set up, and this controller right here is WASD. While Blood Rain 2 does support X input, you need to have X input, the gamepad, plugged in before launching the app. I have found that the right analog stick works poorly, so you're still going to be in a situation where you want to map game controls to mouse and keyboard, if that makes sense. But yeah, so here you go. You have Blood Rain 2. We're running at 320 FPS. This is going to be something that'll look nicer. Also, mods might be a little bit easier to come by. But you can see just how easy that was. Now let's go into another game that someone had recommended to me that they had trouble running. It was... Okay, go here. It was... I have Fallout 3 there, which some people... Okay, so... Nicopole, Secrets of the Immortals. Let's go ahead and press play. Hopefully I've already undid whatever settings I had here. I did not. So one thing that I did here, this game won't run by default. Let's go, no. Let's go ahead and close this. Let me bring this to a state where it is by default. Alrighty, so here we are. I've gone ahead and made this back to the default of how it should be. If I press play, I get an error. In this particular instance, again, we're going to go back to DGVoodoo2. We're going to copy all of this. We are going to put it into the base directory where the exe lives. We're going to paste it there. Go back to Steam and say play. Now, this is the base configuration, right? So this is going to run. You're going to see it in full screen. Now, the only problem with this is that full screen is kind of broken. You can see that when I use the mouse trackpad, that even going down doesn't really go down. Down goes like left, and if I go right, it goes left. So it's all types of messed up in full screen mode. So even though we technically have the game running, the mouse and using is completely broken. So this is another situation where I'm saying, kind of step through the problem. We've fixed the problem of being able to resolve the game, but now we have to do another thing to actually be able to play it. So inside of here of the Nicopole game, you can take a look at the config ini file. In here, take a look at some of the options, and they're pretty much self-explanatory. So we saw that full screen was a problem. Perhaps that is our issue. So if we go to full screen, come on. There we go. Apologies. If we go to full screen equals 0 instead of full screen equals 1, we are now saying don't do full screen. Do it in windowed mode. Now if we go back to Steam and press play, here we are in the windowed state that I had before when I played it, because I was already in a fixed state. So now you can actually play the game. Let's go to return menu because I don't want to save. But now the mouse actually works as it should. So you can see right here, well, let me just use the trackpad right here. If I go right, it goes right. If I go left, it goes left. If I go up, it goes up. If I go down, it goes down. So this is at least in a playable state. It is unfortunately in a window, but full screen is just not working. There is another hour layer is interrupting things. So we do need to run this in a windowed state. This is just to get it to be playable. Again, there might be cases like that. And another thing that you should try to take a look at is maybe this game came out for other platforms. Maybe you can play this through an emulator from another system to play on PC. Again, always look for ports of games and which one is better. Now, I can understand if the PC version has mods and stuff and you want to take a look at it, that's fine. Basically, all right, so Grand Theft Auto, here's a perfect example. This PC game will not work by default. Hopefully I didn't already did. This is DirectX 11, so let me go ahead and X out of here. Now, I am using DGVoodoo2 here already. So if we go to Browse here and we go to Browse Local Files, if we go into here, you can see these are all of the files that I added for DGVoodoo2. So now if I try to just run the game as it was previously, as it'll come to me, you will get this type of error. So putting DGVoodoo2 will make it work for us, but again, there are certain things that you have to look at here, right? So if we go into DGVoodoo2, we copy these files, put it into the base directory of where the executable lives, so that we can properly wrap the game. Go ahead and press play, and then the game just works. Now, pretty sure I already mapped these controls here. Yeah. Now be sure that when you're playing these games, that if you press F11 on GTA 1, you actually bring up a menu to change the resolution. It can be that, you know, the game is running slow, so you just have to kind of kick it back into gear. Now we are running 800 by 600. Alright, so this is GTA 1, right? And we're playing this on the PC build. Now, one thing that I would like to mention here is, again, just talking about finding other versions of it. Obviously, Grand Theft Auto came out for the PlayStation, and one of the benefits, now that PlayStation is inside of Retro Achievement, well, Retro Achievement supports PlayStation, you can actually play Grand Theft Auto 1 and earn achievements in the game. So don't think that the PC-only version is the one that gets mods. There are now ROMs of older games that are getting mods themselves outside of, you know, you normally look at PC and say, PC is where all mods are going to live. That is not always 100% the case. You can play Grand Theft Auto 1 and still have the benefit of the value add of achievements if you like achievements. I'm someone that does like achievements, and I would rather play Grand Theft Auto in a PlayStation emulator on like RetroArch, and then earn achievements. It's going to be far easier. You're not going to have to muck around with binding keyboard keys to whatever. It's going to just work. So largely look at what is ever easiest to play the game and whatever gives you the most value add. Likewise for Resident Evil, you know, this has achievements now. So I'm glad that, you know, all of these achievements are crowdsourced, but they do add additional fun to older games. I really do recommend this service, and it's just something to kind of mention. Let's see if we can take a look at other games here that were told me to take a look at. Okay, so Unreal Tournament 2004. Again, it's going to be largely the same deal of how we always fix stuff. Is you're just going to, you know, DGVoodoo2 is something that you should be using often. Here we are running DirectX 8, and this is in window mode, and it's just kind of running. So we'll go ahead and go to Properties, Browse Local Files. You know what? Actually, let me play the game just so I can show you what the error actually is. Hold on one second. Okay. So this is the error that happens when we run in full screen mode. And again, because the panel on this is portrait, you're going to have errors like this. So DirectX 8 can sometimes cause these problems, especially for people that are on newer types of monitors. This is not very conducive to being, you know, great. Anyway, so you can see what the problem is here. Let's go ahead and fix it. Alrighty, so here I am in Unreal Tournament 2004. Here is the base directory that Steam gives me. If we just copied the DGVoodoo2 files in here, it would not work. Again, why? Because we need to put it in the folder that the executable is going to run, right? So if we go to Unreal, we can see that the executables are actually in the system directory. So this is where we want to put it. Now, again, DGVoodoo2 is largely going to be all you need to fix PC games. We'll just go ahead and paste it in here. And before you saw that it was running DirectX 8, you saw that little moniker that was up there. Now if we play it now, you're going to see that it's running DirectX 11, and it is right there. And more to the point, in full screen, we're running just fine, as it should be. There is no real penalty for playing like this. You know, there's no performance loss. Sometimes there will be weird performance issues, and you will need to kind of step through different situations. You know, but this is so that you can play the game. Let's go ahead and just jump into this real quick. Now again, how the WinMax works is that in mouse mode, the analog stick is set to WASD and this is set to mouse. So I've done no real key bindings as of yet. Oh my goodness. Please just go. Just, yeah, one-on-one. That's fine. So I'm looking around with mouse and I'm kind of moving around. Running at a sweet 300 FPS. Obviously, tweaking your settings to looking around and stuff works. But yeah, we'll go ahead and exit out of this. Alright, so the last part of this video is things that are technically modern games, but they're still broken on Windows 10. So Fallout 3, the Game of the Year edition. This one relies on Microsoft's old and deprecated Games for Windows Live. It's going to need to install that in the background, and largely sometimes it'll fail. We should outright fail in two different respects. Number one, we need Games for Windows Live. Number two, we need actually a codec. If you actually, in Steam, always jump into the discussion part here. Let me go. Let's let this install and I'll show you that it fails. Alright, so here's Fallout 3, the Game of the Year edition. I'll go ahead and press play. It already has pre-configured my settings. All of these are correct. 1280 by 800 is the native resolution for this display. I'm going to go ahead and press play and get absolutely nothing. Now, one of the things that we have to do, I have to go online mode real quick. Let me go ahead and do that. Okay, so to conclude this video, and the last part of the problem is that if DGVoodoo2 and any type of wrapper is not going to help you, Fallout 3 is not, not as super old as those other games, and they won't fall into the bucket of being fixed by wrappers. So now it becomes part of the video where taking a look at Steam discussion forums. I mean, look at this: Fallout 3 Game of the Year, Ultimate Fallout 3 Setup Guide. Read this. These are the steps that I have taken. And I've already done a video on Fallout 3 Game of Year Edition on this device, so you guys have already seen that this works. Technically, the only thing that you need to do is get the Games for Windows Live running, and you also just need the unofficial Fallout 3 patch, and then there is the fix for the video. K-Live Proto... Where is this? This tutorial setup. There is a part where in here... Let me go ahead and find it for you. I was technically already there. So it says the steps 7 through 9 are only for new game crashes before the intro movie plays. Largely, if you do every step before, you will get into it, but if the intro movie plays, you'll crash out. These fixes do indeed help. So again, we are running Intel IGP. Be aware of what type of hardware you're running and then look for the fixes. So not only is Steam a great resource for trying to fix your problems, another good one is PC Gaming Wiki. So if we go to pcgamingwiki.com, we'll go here. Now, one of the things that is nice about here is this is crowdsourced as well. But if I go back into my library, right, and I take a look at, let's say Grand Theft Auto 3, right? So if we go to PC Gaming Wiki and we do Grand Theft Auto 3, and we click on this, if we look at this particular... So it even actually goes to Steam community discussion. So it's already being helpful in showing you where other people are talking and trying to get fixes. So issues fixed, you can kind of jump down here. Game refuses to start. Ensure depth mode is enabled. is set to Windows, set to default. Download, install Silent Patch with DGVoodoo component. 13's AG widescreen fix. These are additional areas where you should look. So either PC Gaming Wiki or the Steam's discussion forum. There are a lot of people out there, especially as time goes forward and newer versions of Windows or anything comes out. We're always looking to things get deprecated, right? And trying to run older games will break because of those deprecations. So we have to try to find fixes or things that wrap those older calls into newer calls. Largely, that's what we're trying to do here, and you need to just be able to understand and conceptualize what is happening, and we kind of step through a bunch of those. I would say if you're having a problem, DGVoodoo2 should be your first step. This is getting updated all the time. Again, there is a password protection on the zip for whatever reason, and you can see he lists the password right there. So try DGVoodoo2 first as a way to wrap your games in DirectX 11. Failing that, go ahead and take a look at the DirectDraw hack, which will wrap it in OpenGL. These will operate differently, so things that DGVoodoo2 might not work on, DirectDraw might. Also, again, DGVoodoo2 is going to be doing Glide, DirectX 8, DirectDraw, and then an older version of DirectX, like a retained mode. So it has 4 different DLLs in the DGVoodoo2. These 4 will inject, where is this? This is the retain mode right here. And also DirectX 9. It'll actually override DirectX 9 and make it into DirectX 11. So that's it. This, again, is only going to be for DirectDraw. It's not going to help for DirectX 8, DirectX 9. DGVoodoo2 also has, if we go and take a look at the folder here, you can see x86. Here are the Glide DLLs. So if a game is using Glide to render, you want to put these DGVoodoo files there instead, because you need to understand what the game is trying to render the screen with, what API calls it's making. We're taking these calls and translating them, wrapping them into DirectX 11. That is conceptually what is happening here and what we're trying to fix. Old deprecated APIs that do not work and wrapping them in something that does. So that's how this video has been. Take a look at the description field. I have all the links that you need there. You have to be mindful. If you're having a problem with a particular game, ask me about it. I can try to help you. For the most part, do these steps first and make a concerted effort in trying to look through them, read up, see if there's any other dependencies that you might need. And that's it. That will help you getting older games to run on whatever Windows 10 program PC. This one in particular is a little bit more difficult, again, because of how the portrait display is and then being rotated. So this is further complicating matters. And again, always look at, running the game as whatever it's been ported to on other consoles and then running that in an emulator. Because lots of times that might be the easier option, and there are some value add options in there. I do recommend Retro Achievements. That's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for your time, and thanks for watching.